Welcome to Soul Elevation, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin. This is a fascinating conversation with Tommy Kilpatrick that's going to shift your understanding of credit card debt and very likely transform your perception of reality as we know it. We get into truly insightful information about the credit card system. And if you are in debt, you're going to want to connect with Tommy to find financial freedom again. Tommy also has a very grand vision for how to help humanity in creative and logical ways. So get ready to be truly inspired by this episode. Tommy A. Kilpatrick, a retired American now living in the Philippines, devotes his life to teaching farmers sustainable skills such as bamboo dome construction, vertical gardening, and creating free self-managed healthcare clinics. Born in California with degrees in abnormal psychology and accounting, he has been an author, teacher, and entrepreneur, navigating a path that included the ending of a 28-year marriage, a decade-long vow of poverty, and a faith-driven journey living on farms. After writing a book on health and healing, he signed an infomercial contract in 2004, endured financial collapse and $85,000 in credit card debt, and represented himself in federal court, where despite dismissals, the debt vanished from his credit card record without tax repercussions. From this experience, he became convinced that the $1.3 trillion in alleged U.S. credit card debt is fundamentally flawed and can be eliminated by banks within 45 days. Before we start, I'd love to invite you to explore the many offerings waiting for you at karagoodwin.com. You'll find my book, Your Authentic Awakening, a collection of free meditations and other resources to support you wherever you are on your spiritual path. You can discover upcoming summits and workshops designed to connect you with like-hearted souls and expand your consciousness in real time. And I really appreciate your support with the show. Those algorithms really favor shows where people are liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. So please do what you can to amplify the energy of the podcast and this episode so high vibe content such as this can thrive online. And now enjoy this episode. Welcome, Tommy. I'm so excited to have you here on Soul Elevation. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun.
So for listeners and viewers who are watching, Tommy is in the Philippines, and we are having a little bit of a lag in terms of when I ask a question and when he responds, and maybe I'm going to be able to tighten things up when I edit this later. But if you notice that, just bear with us, and there's nothing wrong with your connection. Sometimes when I watch things and the technology is a little bit shaky, I'm like, is something wrong with my internet? So I'll just say that up front, that if you're noticing any kind of lag, don't you worry on your side, but stay with us because this is going to be a great conversation. I'm super excited to dive into this. So, Tommy, you have had a major spiritual transformation, and that's where I'd like to start this conversation. What can you share about the spiritual transformation you've undergone?
Well, I'd say about 13 years ago, the wife said, get out and take the dog with you. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. So I walked away from all of my wealth. I had at the time 5 medical clinics and a charity. And it was something that I've been thinking about for many, many years about what was it like to be poor. I had never been that way. So I took this as a great opportunity to be homeless on purpose. I could have gotten a house anywhere along the way, but I didn't choose that. I also took a vow of poverty. So that lasted for about 10 years. And so I wanted to feel what it was like to be hungry at night and to not have a place to stay. And so I never accepted charity. I worked out an exchange. So I wasn't begging, and I wasn't ever dirty. I was never a drug addict, but I wanted to experience that. And so I walk in faith with God. And I've done that ever since. And it's that trust and faith that I know God will provide what is needed for me, and I do God's work. So off I went, and the first stop was in Sedona, Arizona, a very spiritual place, a very healing and connecting place. And so I sure needed that to adjust myself. And I ran across a evangelical family of being a bakery in their home. And so I said, I'll give you a year. And so I had some money from my business and I bought a motorhome and I parked it there and I lived there and they fed me and I worked for their bakery. And so after a year, I said, I gave you my year. And so I helped them very much. I think one example is that she had lost her driving license and had to be driven around. So I was kind of partly her chauffeur. And then one day I asked her, would you like to have your license back? She said, I really would. I really want to have my license back. It was her husband and her each got a ticket for the same offense of not having insurance, and they had insurance, but they didn't have a proof of it. So he submitted to the court. They just kind of forgot about her court case. And so that turned into not having a driver's license. It was really simple. So I wrote a letter to the court explaining what happened, and they got a letter back saying, pay this little bit of money and we'll give you your license. So within 2 weeks, she had her driver's license back and she was thrilled. You should have seen the face on her, the smile on her face when she could drive her car where she wanted to go and, didn't have to be driven. So that's one of the great things I did for her in that sense, that family. And they did a lot of things for me too. So it worked out very well. I could see the power of prayer. They would go away and to a secret areas and they would just pray for hours and hours. And they'd come back and sure enough, a phone call would come through. Someone would stop by, something would come into our lives and make this so much better. And so I've seen the power of prayer. So from there, traveled across the United States, ended up in Maine and lived there. I was on a farm. I thought I was going to die there. I said, just bury me in the back. It didn't matter. We had 32 acres, had 100 animals, growing crops, and it was a wonderful life. And then shift happens, and I got to pronounce that F. So shift happens, and I found myself on the outside. So I decided to come to the Philippines. I needed to have a ticket, an airline ticket. So I had to get an ID. I had left everything. I didn't have a passport, didn't have an ID, nothing. And so it took about a year. It was funny. I had to take a driver's test. Hadn't had that since I was 16. So there I was taking a driving test and passed very well. I know how to drive a car. So, and then got the passport and everything. And I needed a credit card. So it's a funny my story that will be revealing that, yes, I had to get a credit card to get an airline ticket and to rent a car. So I applied for a $500 credit card from Capital One, and they gave me one, even though I had no score and no credit history, none. It was blank because I was off grid for so long. And so, but I was a previous customer. So they had me in their system, so I got a credit card. But happened to be one of the banks I sued for $35,000 of my $85,000 credit card debt. So we'll talk about that, but it's pretty funny. So I'm here in the Philippines. What I'm here for is I teach farmers how to build dome houses out of bamboo. So it's free housing. I teach how to do vertical gardening. So it's no longer having to bend over. It's a lot more volume, a lot more food you can grow with hydroponics and many different techniques. And then I'm also helping them set up self-managed medical care clinics like I had in the States. So to finance my endeavors here, I wrote a book and it's called Forgive and Forget: How to Nuke Your Credit Card Debt. So I have some experience with that. So that's kind of a quick nutshell of where I am at right now, where that spiritual adventure has still leading me today while I'm here.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And we've only skirted around the financial piece. And so I really want to dive into this. Let's go into the credit card debt, the legal issues, and everything that people need to know about what happened with that. Take us into this.
Sure. Well, I am a retired teacher and I'm an author. So I wrote a book on health and healing. And in 2004, I was given an infomercial contract and they needed to test market my different positions in different scenarios and what would be the best way to get people to buy the book. And so I was on the radio for about 6 months and I needed to live. So I had 3 credit cards. I lived off of those and it ran about 85,000. And it's not a big deal when you're promised 100,000 a month. So that's what we were projecting that I was going to be making. So let's 85,000, right? No big deal. But then one of the talents, he got in trouble with the FTC. He made claims in his weight loss book that wasn't true. And so they came down hard on the company. So they canceled all the new talent contracts. So there I was with $85,000 of credit card debt. So, oh my gosh. So what happened is that put me in a little bit of depression, as you could imagine. How am I going to pay for this? And the income, I stopped all my business. So what I do?
And
And
all of
one
this,
morning
I'm sorry to
I
interrupt
woke
you,
up
but
thinking,
this was before the story you just told me, before you walked out on your life with the dog.
yep, this is 2004. So we're going back to 2004
Mhm.
of what happened. So then I woke up one morning thinking about my dad. He's a CPA, and I was studying to be a certified public accountant. Even though I never finished, I have done the work of one without the credential. And I realized that the bank does not have an invoice. And so I have no debt with this bank. And I have a memory. And so one of the books we had to read in our accounting class was from the Federal Reserve about banks. And it was called Modern Money Mechanics. And in there, it says that the banks have to accept a promissory note first, and then they write numbers into your free checking account. That's how they make a loan. And I never signed a promissory note. My father-in-law at the time was an attorney and a judge, and we had long conversations about fraud undoes all contracts. So even though you use a card, you have to fulfill their terms and conditions, not when there's fraud. So I have no contractual agreement with the bank. So I decided on my own, by myself, to sue in federal court three banks for the 85,000. So that's where that kind of came about. And then what happened is we were going along pretty good. We were going to have a deposition, meaning the bank was going to have to send one of their employees to my office. And I was going to be able to ask them all these questions and find out if they have an invoice, where's the promissory note, and what are they doing in their scam they're doing. So I figured out that there's a worldwide bank fraud going on. And I don't think they wanted to send somebody. So all of a sudden I got called into court by the judge. And my father-in-law said, that's really weird. Judges don't call you and not the defendants in the court. So he said, Mr. Kilpatrick, do you have a credit card? Let me start at the beginning. We'll start at the beginning a little later. Do you have a credit card? And I said, well, it was a gift card. A gift card. Pull your card out. He said, read what it says right there. Credit card. You're an idiot. Get out of here. So he dismissed all three cases. And I'm going, oh God, now I'm back to square one again. And so about a month later, I happened to look at my credit report, and all three banks were gone. My credit score improved. So explain that to me.
So let's just make sure that everybody's able to follow that. So you were called into court with and the banks were not. So it was just you and the
No.
judge. And what the words that you were using were, I have a gift card, because there was never any invoice and from the banks. And while you were in court, the judge said, get out of here. This is not, this is a credit card. Didn't seem to agree with you. And it seemed like you didn't make any progress.
It
But
appeared to be that way.
then you never heard anything more,
No.
but you went and looked at your credit score and everything had dissolved.
Yes, those three accounts were off my credit report. And since they were nothing derogatory anymore on those three accounts, my score actually went up. So, yeah. So that because also I didn't get a 1099-C. Let me explain what that is. If you take a loan from a bank for, say, $100,000 and you don't pay them, they notify the IRS that you got $100,000 and didn't pay for it. You'll be having to pay about $45,000 of taxes. And they do that because then they can take a tax deduction. So they have to do that first before they take a tax deduction for their loss. So in my pleading, in my complaint, I said that if you give me a 1099-C, I'm going to file a 3949-A. So my dad being a CPA, I have the IRS as part of my DNA. So what a 3949-A is a notice you send to the IRS of a fraudulent action by a taxpayer. So I told the bank if they did that, because that would be it would be false to say I had a loan. So I was going to notify them of the bank committing tax fraud. So they never sent me a 1099-C. I never heard from them ever again. And then I just told you in the beginning that years later, I had to apply for a credit card, and Capital One gave me, that's the important words, is they gave me a $500 credit card, even though I had no score and no credit history, but I was a previous customer. And I must have been a good customer, even one that sued them for $35,000. But you see, it's the whole thing. And you don't have to believe me. Your audience does not have to believe me at all. Okay. I sent you some show notes, and there'll be 3 links, and you look up the links and see if I'm accurate, if I'm truthful. I also ask you to send this podcast to your CPA or anyone who's had one class of accounting, and they'll tell you, well, I've never thought about that, but yeah, this guy's right. There is no invoice. There wasn't a loan, and fraud undoes all contracts. So he's asking the bank to close the free checking account. And okay, what could it hurt? So that's what I'm saying to you, is that you don't have to believe this. What I have figured out is you're a victim. We are a victim of bank fraud. And I'll explain more about that, because law is language and language is law. So if you say you have credit card debt, you've got it. There's nothing I can do for you. Okay. But if you use the criminal's language, then you're never going to win the argument. So what happens is that when we see the TV and there's a bank robbery in progress, we always say alleged. So all I'm asking you to do, you and your audience, is to add one word, is alleged credit card debt. That puts the burden on the bank to prove it. So if you go into court and say, I've got credit card debt, I can't help you at all. But there is a way of asking the bank to, if you say alleged, now they've got to prove it. So that's my whole point, is that we start from that. Let me ask you a question. Is it possible you, your audience, and me too, have been lied to, indoctrinated, and brainwashed? Is it possible?
It is possible.
Okay, it's possible. So a lie is a lie, and we can tell what a lie is a lie. But what happens if it's told generationally? What if someone said, Cara, mommy says, this is a credit card, okay, and you've got to pay every month. Okay, if you don't, they'll sue you in court. Okay, the courts know this, the attorneys know this, the whole system knows this. So this is being brainwashed. I'm not trying to insult you or your audience, and me too. But if you question it, then you're not no longer brainwashed. All I'm asking you to do is question this, because I think you are a victim of a bank fraud, a worldwide bank fraud, and I'm the one who has revealed it. So I'm really your victim rights advocate, is what I see myself as. So that's what is all happening from my position. So it's not getting out of debt. This is not a get out of debt scheme. You are a victim, and I can help you no longer be a victim.
Wow. I mean, I love this so much. I'm curious. So we've talked about this in the context of credit card debt. How does this relate to student loan debt or taxes, or what are the other implications in terms of how we are being siphoned from?
Oh, yes. This is only very specific. Okay, so this does not work for student loans. It doesn't work for a home loan, doesn't work for an auto loan, and it doesn't work for a loan that you put up your yacht or something for and you signed a promissory note.
Oh,
And
good,
again, this
because
is
I'm really
not,
worried about
yeah.
my yacht.
Everyone's got one in the backyard, I know.
Right.
So there is ways I find people money is the funniest thing. So there is ways of paying things off. So it depends on where you're at in the system and stuff like that. I can take you from the easiest part right now that you're going, I don't want to get on this merry-go-round anymore. I'm going to get off. Okay. Or you've been sued. I had a podcaster just 6 days ago. He had interviewed me and he contacted me. He said, I've been sued by Citibank for $3,300 and I've got about 5 days before it's going to be a default judgment. So I've got to respond. And so I helped him through a private membership association. It's called a PMA. So I'm able to do legal work without being an attorney, okay, because it's a private. associated. It's just two people that I can talk to. So what we did is we figured out a strategy we need time. So he sent a letter to the court, to the judge, and it had to go to the attorney too of the bank. And he said, I'd like to have more time to extend it before I have to answer this because I want to find an attorney. We're not looking for an attorney, but the judge loves that kind of stuff. They all want money in the systems. They're all brothers, the brotherhood sticks together. And we'd like to do some legal research. Okay. But he wants to file a counter complaint. So who in their right mind would ever file? Everybody knows we're all brainwashed. This is a credit card debt. You have no defense. Well, what could the defense be? That's where they're going to find out. So that's where I expect them to dismiss the case very soon. If they don't, well, they're going to find out that they don't want to wrestle with us at all. So we will point out their crime and stuff. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But that's it's only about credit cards. So let me explain to you first. There are true credit cards, okay? Let's say you want some tires, Cara. Your car has a fall, you need them or you're going to die, right? So you pull into that tire store and they tell you how much. You're going, I don't have that. But they say, hey, Cara, apply for the in-store credit card and see if you're approved. You're approved. You get the tires, you drive away. You didn't pay for those tires, did you? No. And you didn't pay for the service. They balance the wheels, they put them on your car nicely. So you didn't pay for that. You're going to get a statement at the end of the month. That's true. They have an outstanding unpaid invoice, which is true. You owe the money. You have to pay the tire store. It's their tires. It's their workers that balance them and put them on your car. So that is a debt you owe. Okay. You can't get out of it. This is not getting out of debt. But how about a Walmart card or a Amazon or a department store card? Look on the back of the card. If it says issued by Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, then that is a store. It's not a store issued credit card. It's a bank issued alleged credit card. And that is a phony one. So that's how we know the difference between a true credit card you owe money on and you got to pay it, and the ones you don't, because it's not a debt.
Wow. Okay. So this is so fascinating. I'm curious about so many things. How, where do you go from there? Okay, so you are living in the Philippines, and this is something because you're not the first person that I've come across who has done some of these things that I mean, in this society where we see how things work and we play by the rules and we are just like you're saying, I mean, brainwashed really, but not through our own fault, but because this is the design of the illusion and we're participating in it. Now, what I've noticed is that a lot of these people like you who have done things like this and they're speaking out, they are no longer living in the US. And so tell me about that and how this applies to people who still, if there's even a difference. I don't even know if it's a coincidence or what, but I'd love to know more.
Well, for the purpose of really coming to the Philippines to say it in the language here is Nagapangita sa asawa. I came here looking for a wife. So I found a fiance, so she finds me attractive, which is a nice difference in America. It's not the way for a man of my age. I would not find anybody this beautiful and this young and exciting, and we're on an adventure. And it wasn't to leave the country. It was partly but I just couldn't finance what I wanted to do there. I have a big plan to take over a restaurant and offer free food. I get the food for free, offer the food for free, and then have a private membership association so that people pay for a reservation. So for a $10 reservation, they're going to get a 5-course meal. I'm talking real high quality. And how can you do that at the restaurant? I know I tried for 2 years. I made presentations to city councils. I went to nursing homes. I went to I'm trying to think of senior center. I went to pantries. I went to churches. They all had a kitchen. That was what I was looking for, was a commercial kitchen. And they all turned me down. They said, it's not going to work, but I'm going to do the work. We don't have the money. I'll finance it. So it just to be too difficult. And so I came here to the Philippines, not only to do it here, it's a lot less expensive. There's a lot less risk for me to do that. So what I'm going to be doing is going to the vendors of food, like at the market, the big, huge wet market, we call it here. And I'll go to one and it's selling bananas. And I'll say, I bought some bananas from you yesterday. Here's some banana bread in a nice box that says Art You Eat Gallery. So it's an art gallery. Yeah, that's my angle. So I'm gonna give them food that they can then sell that. And by making 1,000 pesos a day, which is, not much, it's about probably about $10 or so like that. Yeah, but $20. So if they could make that much more money in 1 month, it's two people's income and it'll be totally free. So a packaged product is a lot more valuable than bananas. So I make the banana bread and then they put it on their shelf and they sell that and they make an extra 1,000 pesos. That's 30,000 pesos a month. That's, as I was saying, that's two people's income and it would be totally free. Then they say, what can I do for you? That's all I'm looking for. Here's 3 buckets. I'm looking for 1 bucket from your seeds. I want the papaya seeds. I want the different kind of seeds, the melon seeds, all these things, because I'm going to sprout them for food. I want the scraps, all the trimmings you do that you're just going to throw away, throw it my way because I can feed my pigs, feed the chickens, feed the ducks, feed everything, all the animals on the farm. And if it's so bad, it feeds the fertilizer, it feeds the earth. And then here's another bucket for things that are edible, but you're just not going to sell it today. There's a blemish on it, or it's just going to go bad another day. Give that to me, and I'll bring back food to you. So I want to be unequal. I want them to get a lot more value than they're giving me. So it's kind of like they give me trash. It could be a treasure to me. So I want the trimmings. I want the food that's going to rot because I've worked as a chef. I've seen the amount of waste. So I bring that back and I have more and more and more food. So I have my chefs who are chefs to be learning. They are learning, they're artists that are going to use the food as their expression of their art. So here in the Philippines, it costs about $7,000 a year to be a chef. And you go to school at another island, and it's only 4 hours a day for a year. In my process, I give them room and board and an allowance. And I want them to cook all day and bake all night. So I need to bring food in. So we have our farm. That's where I've married into people that have farms and things like that. So they're going to be bringing all the food in and we're bringing it back. So it's a barter system, but they get more than we do. So how do we make money and all that kind of stuff is through not really a restaurant, because then you think of a restaurant. It's an art gallery that people come and they see artwork. So I just happened to see something in Vietnam. They have noodles and they hold the noodles up and they pour hot oil over the noodles and it freezes in the air and you leave the stick there. And so that's what I'm talking about, art. There's another one that showed ice cream and they're squirting in different things inside the ice cream. That's another perfect idea. So I want to have this to be an art piece that people pay a reservation and they come in and enjoy this food if they want to. It's an art gallery that they actually to eat. So I've got some big adventures to bring back to America. And so once I prove it here in the Philippines, I can bring it back.
Oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. I mean, it is a whole other model, and I have hope that this is the future. That we will turn the our what we think of as an economy on its head and be living in a different type of model. And the way that we do that, it takes that, I mean, what an imagination to be able to say there are so many other ways that we can do this besides how we are doing it. So I applaud you. I'm blown away. That's amazing. So your plan is to return.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I
so
didn't run away.
okay, that's really interesting. And when okay, let's talk about the person that you're going to help get out of credit card debt who is here still in the US.
Right.
And even your own experience, like you did this and then you kept on living here, but you went off the grid. So I assume that this host that you were talking about, they're not planning to move off the grid. They're going to carry forward. They're still going to need a credit card in the future or banking or, you know, what are the knock-on effects, or how do you use this in an ongoing way, or is it just if you find yourself in peril and you're in debt?
I can help you in any place along the way you are, even if you have a post judgment and you're now making payments to the bank. There is a way out of this situation. So, what we kind of do is think about years ago. I had a general store, and you walked in and said, "Hey, Charlie, I need 5 pounds of flour and a pound of sugar." And I went, "Oh yeah, Kara, I'll write that all down. Your crops are coming in a couple of weeks. You'll pay them back, right?" So you don't go to Charlie and say, "Hey, Charlie, can I borrow $10,000? What am I, a bank?" You go see the bank for that. So banks are about loans, and merchants and people who provide a service offer credit. Credit means believe. So they believe that you're going to pay them back, and they have an invoice, and that's the critical thing. So the bank never sold you tires. They never came out to your house and did a plumbing job. These people are not merchants, they are bankers. So that's where we have to clarify that. So once we move on, it's impossible for a bank to have issued a credit card. Okay. Now you're going to say they did a loan. Ah, there we go. Now we have the other argument. So what happens if we have no money and you go into a bank? You hope to come out with money, and you do that through a loan. So let me ask you a question, Karen. If you apply for a loan and a bank turns you down, do you still get the loan?
No.
No, that's silly. They turn you down. That's the thing you got to remember. Application means a request. You're asking. Now, if they approve you, then what do? You go into the bank and you fill out loan documents. You remember that, don't you? Page after page of all kinds of disclosure and all kinds of stuff you had to sign. So you had to show an income. You had to prove you had an income, because if you said you had no income, they wouldn't take your application, would they? Denied. Well, you come in and say, "Where's the evidence?" So think about this. The bank is brought into court, and the judge is going to say, "You're loaning money to people who don't even have an income? That's predatory." So the bank has to have you provide proof that you actually can pay this loan back. You also have to have collateral. So you put up your house, you put up your car, and if you go for that personal loan, you put up your yacht, the one you don't have, but the one that person has. So they put up something so the bank can legally take it away from you, sell it. And if they're short, well, that's their problem, right? If they come up long, they don't get to keep the money. So if you owe 100,000 and they take your yacht, it's worth 1 million. They don't keep the 900,000. They got to pay you back the difference. But that's the legal way they can take it away from you, because someone's taking your car. You call them up, someone's stealing my car. Oh, is that a repossession? Yeah, that's not our problem, lady. Yeah, we'll come out to protect the repo from you trying to attack. We've seen that on the TV. They attack the repo guy. "I got a repo order here. Why pay them?" "I don't care. The order says I'm taking a car," and they can legally take the car away from you. You also have a credit report to show something, and a credit score determines your interest rate. The last thing you sign is a promissory note. You have to promise to pay it back. This never happened with a bank issued alleged credit card. So that's where we're starting at, is that there was never a loan. So how you resolve this is that you write a letter to the bank to disclosure free checking account. You're going, "What free checking account you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about." Okay. Banks advertise, right? They spend money to get you to be a customer. We see their ads on TV and everywhere else. So years ago, they used to purchase toasters and wall clocks and have them in the bank. If your mom went in, they'd say, "Oh, if you would open an account today, you get a free toaster." And so your mom came home, your dad said, "How'd you get the toaster? These are very expensive." "Oh, I just opened an account. What it cost you?" "Nothing." "Really? Oh, that's great." So we're all so happy. So one time there was a newspaper ad that I saw, and it said, "Come into our bank and deposit $25 and keep it there for 90 days and we'll match it." Well, what did I do? I took my $25, went into the bank, and I waited 91 days. I went into the bank and I withdrew my 25 and the bank's 25. They happily gave it to me. I closed the account and I walked out. I got a question for you. Did I steal from the bank?
No.
What, my 25? They're 25. You could say, no, Tom, you stole it. No, they gave it to me. Well, why did they give it to you? Because that was the deal. Now, let me ask you a question. Was that immoral, what I did?
I would say no.
No, they set the deal up. On your show notes, the fourth link is a guy on YouTube that says, do that. And I've made $361. He's very proud of what he's done. He says that just find the banks that match it, do what they and then close the account and go to the next bank. Just keep doing it. I've made $361. It's the same thing with a Capital One $500 credit card. That's why I said in the beginning, it's a gift card. The bank is trying to get you to be a customer. And from their advertising budget, they've got $500 they're going to give you, and that's called a gift card. They gave it to you. Sometimes they came in a mail, you didn't even apply for it. You're pre-approved. But using a card, we'll get into that too. So, Kara, what would you like to purchase if I sent you a $500 gift card? One item you'd like to buy right now that could help you out. Could be anything. Tell me what it could be.
Oh, there are these really cool lights that you can they create all these geometries. It's just like, have you
Perfect.
heard about these?
That sounds great. So you go to a store to buy this and with your gift card, okay? And so you're walking out and they say, wait a second, lady, did you pay for that? And you show them a receipt. Now, are you going to get a statement from that store at the end of the month?
No,
Are you going to get a demand for an outstanding unpaid invoice? No, it's
no.
paid. You didn't pay for those lights. Someone did. So who paid the store that night or the next day?
The bank.
The bank. So where'd the bank get the money from? Their advertising budget. Okay. So what's this whole story about? Look it up yourself. I did this 2 months ago. What does the average person pay for their credit card fees? And it's $23.04. So if Bank of America has 1 million card holders, they're bringing in $23 million a month. And in my calculations, I think that's 1/4 of their profit. So 1/4 of their profit is based on getting you to give them $23.04 for a free checking account because that's what they're doing. And then one podcaster told me that he pays $800 a year in annual fee. That's not a free checking account. Yeah, how does this all happen? So you're a good person. You're a moral person. The statement comes from the Bank of America, and you think it's a bill. They make it look like a bill, so you better pay. You've been told. Everybody knows it's a bill, so you write your $500 check out from, let's say, the Bank of Indiana, and you send that $500 to the Bank of America. Now, isn't that the first time Bank of America has ever seen your money? Think
Yes.
about it. Yeah. Yeah. Unsolicited, a card comes, a Bank of America credit card, you think, and it's actually, I call it a gift card. So use the right terminology. And you buy something and you get their statement. You think it's a bill and you send $500 to the bank thinking you owe the money. That's the fraud. So that is all about loans. Banks, and that's the first link. Banks do not take deposits. When you take money into a bank and leave it there, that is a loan. So you have loaned money, and where they put that is in a free checking account. It's not a checking account you had to pay for, but that's how you get access is through your debit card. So in the mail, it arrives to you as a gift card. If you use it and if you send money to that bank, now it becomes a debit card. So every purchase you've made since then has been with your own money. You are fronting your checking account every month from your purchases, but you don't have to fill your checking account up every month, but not this one. If you don't fill it back up, you get charged interest, late fees, overdraft fees. You get the cash advance fee. Cash advance, it's your own money. They're charging you to give you your own money back. So that's how the whole scheme works, is what they're doing. So how you get out of this, you don't get out of debt. How do you get out of being a victim is, first of all, you have to have some evidence, right? If you're a victim, where's the evidence? Your credit report. So I ask you to get your credit report. I don't need to see any of the details, just need the bank and just the reporting information. I don't need to know the account number or anything. From that, we would then have you fill out 5 different state and federal complaints. This is going to the police. The police police the banks. They're not going to call the local sheriff or your police department and do this. That's not it. It's 4 or 5 state or federal agency that we send complaints to. Okay. Now you are identifying yourself as a victim, right? You have the evidence, you've got the complaint. We keep a copy of that because we're going to send that to the bank. Okay. Because we want them to close your free checking account. But here's the thing, you better withdraw your money first before you send the letter. So you might call it max out your card. That's the criminal language. You're not maxing out the card. You are withdrawing your money out of the bank. Because when you close your account, Kara, they say, oh, so sorry to see you leave our bank. Here's your $3.15 you still have. No, the banks confiscate your money. And when you hear about them lowering your credit limit down from $500 to $250, the bank stole $250 out of your account. And you're going, oh, they lowered my credits. They lowered my credit limit down. No, the bank took $250 of your money. Oh, they closed my account. Oh, so sad. I can't use the card anymore. They just stole all of your money. So these people are criminals. Okay. So what we do is we send the bank a letter with an attorney, with a letter from your CPA that says, first of all, if you have an invoice, send it. We agree to pay, right? They have no invoice. They can't. 2, you've violated federal banking regulations because you didn't ask for a promissory note, so there was no loan. The attorney sends a letter saying fraud undoes all contracts, so we do not have a contractual agreement with you. And oh, and by the way, if you want to come after us with a lawsuit, we're ready with a counter complaint, and this is what we would do. Here's the discovery. Here's the interrogatories, here's the admissions, and we've also called for a deposition, which they don't want to happen. And on top of this, we're going to file an injunction. So, injunction. People didn't know about this before Trump, but now everybody knows. Trump does one thing, what do they do? Run into court, do an injunction, and he stops. Same thing. What we do is we ask the judge to have the bank send them a certified copy of the outstanding unpaid invoice, a certified copy of the promissory note, and an affidavit of debt. Someone in the bank has to swear on a Bible under penalty of perjury, which means jail time or a fine, that they actually have the debt instrument, they have the proof of a loan, and that you owe the money. So if they don't do that in 30 days, they're held in contempt of court and nothing happens. So you send that to the registered agent, and that's the people who always receive the lawsuits. So it goes right to the bank's attorney, and they're going to look at this going, this is going to cost $40,000, $50,000 just to start. Because I know that's what I was doing to them when I sued them. I kept that attorney on for an hour. We were talking about sports. We're talking about where he lived. We talked about where he grew up. We were talking about the law school. We're talking everything I could think of. And he's going, hey, it's been 2 hours now. I know you're billing the bank, so let's keep going. I goes, okay, he didn't care. He can just write it off as talking to me. So I ran up the debt on all 3 banks. So when someone takes a bite out of me, it's going to cost them about $100,000 of attorney fees. So so that's what we do. All we're asking them to do, the bank, is to remove the derogatory item and close the account by the cardholder. So we're asking for the bank to close that account, and that'll leave it as a good account. Now, if they don't do that, that's okay. We send all this to the credit reporting agency, showing that we filed a complaint, we're claiming it's fraud. They have to, by law, remove it off the credit report. Now, we can't ask them to clean it up. All we have to do is remove it. So once it's removed, your score goes up, and you apply for a credit card the next day. Well, no, they're going to ban you. No, remember, the bank wants you as a customer. They're going to make $23.04 on average. So what do? You don't get a credit card with an annual fee. You get a credit card, ever want, but you know the scam, you know the risk you're taking, but you have to have it to raise your credit score or to have a purchase or like a rental car. So you know what the score is, you know what the story is. So you only buy things that you're going to put back in your checking account every month. So
you say that part again. You only buy things that you're going to put back in your checking account.
Right. So if you're going to be using this credit card, and you should use 10% every month to raise your score. So I started off with no score. Once I got the credit card, my score went to 525. I had a little installment loan from a credit union, and I pay every month, and that boosts me to 625. So I've been using 10% of my credit card. I know. Call it a credit card. Everybody else calls it. So I use 10% and I pay it off. Never be late, and I always pay early. And so they never are going to get ever a penny from me. I'm one of the 12% of the people they're never going to make money on. So in that way, I know it's my money, but whatever I purchase, I'm going to send it back to the bank right away. But I do it only for 10% to reach my score. And it's the risk I take. They could at any time lower my credit limit down. So they say, and they stole 250. It's the risk. They could close my account for any reason, and all my money's gone. So it's I'm trying to get back up to 800. So now it's 706. So I'm trying to get to 800 to show to you that yes, you can do this with no score, but you can do it right away as long as I'm going to teach you how to deal with this.
And so are you getting new credit card? Like you're going through this process every time, or you're to the point now where you've got one credit card, it doesn't have an annual fee or it doesn't have any sort of fee. You're paying it off every time, and you're not like going through this cycle of starting to get new gift card, credit cards, however we want to say it. Which one are you now?
Well, I just did the one card because I needed
Okay.
that. But the plan is there is gifts so I can help people. I had another podcaster tell I found $20,000 he didn't know he even had. So more of the story is that after this thing in the court back in 2004, a friend of mine had a charity that was inactive, and so she gave it to me, and I revamped it into credit repair. And so a lot of people that had credit repair also had credit card debt. So I would write a letter to the bank. And the podcast this morning interviewed me. He said, "How much successful were you?" "Oh, it was about 1,000 people in 7 years." He says, "How could that be? We're only asking the bank to close the free checking account. Why do you think they're going to resist? They're not going to sue because once it's off the credit report, there's no debt. They have no evidence of a debt, so they can't sue you. So that's why it's so successful. And no one knows about it because I don't know.
Wow.
I'm out this pushing this so I can sell a book and so I can get some money to do what I want to do here in the Philippines and bring it back to the States. So that's kind of like the motivation of me to write the book is
Yeah.
to then disclose this fraud that's been going on for too long.
Right. Wow, this has just been amazing. One more thing that I want to talk about before we close is something that you mentioned in the beginning, which I think is important. It's the language. You talked about the alleged, and that's a big part of what you teach is the language. And I think that there's a bigger because this type of thing, like I mentioned earlier, it's happening. There are a lot of pioneers in this space. You're the first one I've heard of with this specific approach. There are other people doing it in terms of, tickets that you get and even utility bills, taxes. There are a lot of people who are trying to expose this, how we're being taken for a ride and what you can do about it. And one thing that is very clear is that language is so important, even down to, if somebody were to come to your door and try to, and I don't know how this applies in your specific case, but let's just imagine an authority, somebody that we see as an authority, um, comes to your door, knocks on your door, and asks, "Are you Thomas Kilpatrick?" And the importance of answering that in the right way and legally. If you just say, "Yes, I'm Thomas Kilpatrick," you've handed yourself over. You have, because that's step one. But if you acknowledge that you are a, I don't remember exactly how they talk about it, but the way that I internalized it, I am a spirit inside a body that is sovereign, and
Oh yeah.
I don't That is whether I can't remember now. I'm not doing it justice, but it's the embodiment and it's the language behind it. But there's more to it than just knowing the checks. Like, okay, here's the to-do list in order to follow this protocol. It's like you really have to be ready to step into yourself as a sovereign being. And I don't know if because this really all goes together, everything that you've talked about and so much that we're not even getting to, but it all goes together. This like really stepping into the fullness of who you are and outside of the illusion that we have constructed and that we're all agreeing to, but we're not benefiting from. And that's the gentlest way to say it, is we're not benefiting from this structure.
You have to know where you're at. I wear a pair of glasses, and my first pair of glasses is I'm a theist. I believe there's an involved God. My second pair of glasses I wear is that I believe we were enslaved 10 to 12,000 years ago, and we're still enslaved, and by either being a wage slave or a debt slave. And so I have been around the sovereignty movement since I was about 16, and I thought it was great. You don't have to pay taxes. It's voluntary. Yeah. But then I'd wait and see they go to jail. Oh, they didn't do it right. We have a better way. And I'd read their books and I'd see them go off to jail. And I went, and I've met people who do not have a driver's license, several, and they get pulled over. And do I really want to go through that? So then when police ask you who you are in your ID, do you have to answer their questions? Only if you're arrested. Do you have to give your name and date of birth? But they can actually make you get out of a car. I thought about this. I looked it up, but yes, the Supreme Court ruled that a police officer can ask you to get out of the car. And that's oh, you stumbled. Oh, now you're drunk. And now they see. So I really don't want to participate in the police state situation at all. So here's something for you. Look up 28 USC, United States Code, 3002. 28 USC 3002. It'll be a definition. And the definition of the United States is a federal corporation. So it's not the United States of America. See, they're playing with the language, United States. So if you say you're a United States citizen, you now come underneath the auspices of Washington, D.C. And this all came about because when we formed a country, this nation, we were white people, and from a particular area of white people from a certain part of Europe. Okay, what happened after the Civil War is you have all these unshackled black men. And now what do you do with them? They're not white. They can't be a citizen of a state, of a sovereign state. So they have the District of Columbia, which is not a state. It's in the middle. So they came up with the 14th Amendment to have them be citizens of that area so they could give them some rights. So if you say you're a United States citizen, you are now underneath the authority of a corporation. And all the things you've said, all the things you've seen, all the terrible, it doesn't matter because we are not under a constitution. The United States is a federal corporation. Corporations work underneath bylaws. So you think you're in the United States of America. No, you are, once you say you're citizen, and that's the only choices you have on my passport. Oh, I applied for the passport. I had 8 pages. It went into everything. I was a sovereign country. I had my thing of, I can't remember, I'm the president of Synergy, something like that. I made it all up. I went on, and they sent me a passport. And it's not a diplomatic passport. It's not the stars. It's so, yeah.
Wow.
So I've gone the route. So I'm at peace where I'm at. And so I understand where I'm at. And we've also come underneath fascism. There's a book called Friendly Fascism. I read it. It was written in 1980, but I read it a few years ago. And the author said, it'll never happen here. And what fascism is just when a business and government do this. And that's what we're seeing. It's just the natural evolution of capitalism. In the beginning, you had merchants, and they were in control of the capital. So they were the capitalists with the merchants. Then the industrialists came along, and now they had the industry, they controlled it. Then the banksters came along, and now it's financial. But it's just so logical during the war, World War One, and then after that, World War Two, definitely after that, that the banks and the government came one and one. So what we have is friendly fascism, but it's still fascism. So how do you live a sovereign life? Well, I come to the Philippines with a lot more freedom. Yes and no. I'm a foreigner, so I got to keep my mouth shut about everything. But at least I can be in peace. I can be on an island where they're not going to bother me because I speak the language. So I learned the language in 30 days. It's another book I'm writing right now, is how to speak Hiligaynon in 30 days. So yeah. And in the past, when I was really taking it to the banks, I had two private detectives come to my house impersonating police officers. They had the badge and they had the card and stuff like that. And so they tried to come in and look at my computer. And I gave them a little bit of leeway to see what they were up to. And they were trying to search my hard drive for all of my clients and stuff. So I chased them out and then called the police actually on them, which was pretty entertaining. But yeah, I've had people showing up. So I have no worries here.
I bet. Wow. Well, bless you and the work that you're doing, Tommy. I really applaud everything that you're doing to try to help people become more sovereign. I hope that what we're hearing today is the I know it's not the beginning, but for a lot of people, it will be opening doors for at least reconfiguring our understanding of what reality is, what that means for us from a sovereignty perspective, and what possibilities there are for people who are in debt. So thank you so much. It's really been a joy and a pleasure. Please tell people how they can connect with you.
Oh, sure. Tommy A. Kilpatrick on Facebook is the easy way to reach me. In the show notes, you'll have my email. And if you come contact me, I'll give you a free 15-minute consultation, and I'll give you my book for free. So my $69 book for free, just come and talk to me, and we'll figure out what your situation is and give you some ideas and some possibilities.
Wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Soul Elevation. If someone in your life would be inspired or uplifted by what you heard today, please take a moment to share it with them. These are the kinds of conversations that ripple out and elevate collective consciousness. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the powerful episodes ahead. Your presence, your energy, and your support truly help amplify this mission of raising frequency and anchoring in a more awakened humanity. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you for the next episode of Soul Elevation.